Hey everyone, this is Soul. This is kind of another video. It's going to be a little bit special today because what I want to do today is commentate on this right here on Castle Nathria and offer up my perspective as a tank, as a paladin tank, as well as a guild and raid leader and someone who raids at an AOTC level. We got AOTC just the other day. He's dead. Thank goodness. And so I wanted to kind of reflect and give thoughts on each of the encounters, the raid itself. So of course this sort of video is not going to be for everybody. Feel free to nitpick on my tactics or my gameplay style, or when I click on major cooldowns, you know, do whatever you like, but or otherwise go ahead and play me in the background as I talk about each of these fights from my perspective and thoughts on that. And well, let's just kind of get this show on the road. So first boss, Shriekwing. I find this one to be, I guess it's one of the better ones that I've encountered. You know, first raid, first expansion. I think back to earlier fights like, oh shucks, Nythendra? I think Nythendra from the Emerald Nightmare. I think of the robot chonk dude. I don't know his name. The robot dude in Uldir. This fight I found to be a bit more unique than the others, but I think that Blizzard has just done. They've taken, I guess, some bigger strides when it comes to, okay, the first boss of the first expansion. They always want to try to make a good impression, and this one, I think it gave a decent delivery of something a little bit different with those bouncy thingies, which was like so frustrating for some people. And then basic stuff. I did find like this particular mechanic weird, the whole bite thing, because it's kind of a backwards sort of tank debuff. In this case, if you guys aren't familiar with the tanking, you know, you get hit, you get this debuff, and you take no more healing. So the other tank needs to taunt immediately, and sometimes they don't. Something that I found a little bit interesting about the way that the mechanic works, my co-tank Scrumble over there, I'm gonna call him Blue. So Blue over there, like, he'll taunt off of me when I get that bite, but for whatever reason, right before the boss is going to do that ability again, I either pull aggro or somehow he switches to me. It's very peculiar. Sometimes it happens a lot. It doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it works out just fine. I mean, I do notice that with the few times that I would do this with other tanks, I wouldn't have that issue. So maybe it's a threat thing. Maybe it's just kind of a weird thing that's going on. But otherwise, this fight was cool in the sense that, you know, it wasn't like overly difficult, but at the same time, it could easily get so frustrating with the echolocations and things like that, especially with these circles. A very familiar mechanic that is a lot more punishing than it usually is. Oh god, please don't let me get hit in this footage. But I do notice that, yeah, sometimes it's easy for people to avoid stuff, sometimes not so much. And for those who aren't familiar with it, there are, like, you know, people have made mini games based on this. They've made add-ons to make sure, okay, good, I didn't get hit. They've made add-ons to make sure that people can get like a little bit of practice. So you can see, like, this room, this is bad. This is a pretty bad one. Like, people were able to run their echolocations whenever they got assigned to it. You know, they're able to run into the walls, as you can see over there, pretty well. But obviously the people that are getting hit around the pillars, they're like totally screwing up. We've had more than a number of occasions where, well, like what he's doing right here with the Screech. You can see that because they kind of fan out at an angle, you're going to see some bounce backs over there. A lot of the time, the melee aren't going to notice. So yeah, that was a normal hit. Didn't look like anyone pooped over there, but yeah. It sucks whenever problems like this happen. But overall, I found this fight to be a good intro. It's a decent intro. It was fairly fun. It's pretty face roll. Once you get used to it, you notice here we're going to kill it. And we've had more than a couple of times where he'll be at like, 2%, 1%, and then he'll go into that phase 2 sort of dealy again. And everyone's like, wipe the raid, screw it, it's over, So when we started this raid, or when we started the season, we had way too many people. Way too many people. We had 30 some odd people that wanted to get in, and so I needed to vet people somehow. Like, oh, your item level isn't high enough, or I think that was mostly it. Your item level wasn't high enough, or you showed up late. It was things like that that left those few people out, and it felt a little bad. Some of those people still happened to stay in guild, and they were able to stick it out. Some others, they kind of split off to make their own group. So we have like 2 groups. We have like a Tuesday, Thursday group. That's my group. We have a Wednesday and Sunday group, which is still kind of trying to struggle to get through. Like, they're on Sire Denathrius right now as well. But some of us from the Tuesday, Thursday group, we happen to join them. And this was unique. Throughout this raid, more people have stayed than ever before. I've never, fast forward, I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but by the time we got to Denathrius, we had like 20 or so people that were ready to go, and we had about that number for the kill, if I'm remembering this correctly, and I'm probably not. But the retention on during this tier has been higher than any other before. I think a lot of it is thanks to the way. Oh, I died. I think a lot of it is thanks to just the long tail systems of 9.0 with the Sanctum and Anima and other such things. Now, some people have, for the most part, they've been raid logging after a while, because once they reach that certain level or item level or whatever, it's like, oh, okay, I get stuff from the Great Vaults, I'm getting stuff from the raid every now and then, I'm good with this, let's just go ahead and get on whenever I need to. But I think that helped a little bit with regards to avoiding some burnout. It's funny, because you'll hear in comments, and hell, you'll probably hear in YouTube comments, oh man, I burned out like super quick because of their reasons. But I think I found that some of the freedom of being able to like step away and not have to log on all the time to like do things, that's helped greatly with making people feel like, okay, I'm not going to burn myself out. Another big part of it is that we have like kind of I don't know if we can call it an administrative team or whatnot, but we have a number of people who contribute most of the raid materials when it comes to potions and feastuses and flasks and consumables and other such things. Like, I foot the bill for a lot of it. Certain members of the guild, they do a lot of the gathering. And so the logistics of maintaining this raid has been pretty easy. Like, sometimes we'll have like an excess of materials. I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. But it wasn't until we started doing heroic when I was like, okay, let's start making cooldown pots and things like that. Like, we didn't use any of that stuff beforehand. Otherwise my ass would be broke way earlier. We didn't start using cooldown pots until I think Sludgefist, because of the way that he works and how tight of a DPS check that is. Second boss, what's his name? Huntsman something or other. This is one of my favorite fights. At the same time, it's one of the most boring fights out there, as a tank, at least. Because whoever's tanking the Huntsman, which is blue in this case, it's, oh my god, the most boring thing ever. Like, I did it one time the other week, and I was like, this is it? What am I doing? Why am I doing the hard... I mean, it's very engaging by comparison. Essentially, moving the dog around and all that stuff, like, that's not so big of a deal. And I should probably comment on... well, you can't see it, but... my guild gambles a lot these days. They do like 10, 15k rolls, like all throughout trash. They do have this chat add-on with it. Anyway, Huntsman. Let me skip ahead just a smidge. Just a smidge. Just one more smidge. Okay, here we go. I'm doing the pull timer. So, so we tank. You're gonna see where we tank him and everything, but I remember this was like an early struggle for us when we were doing normal and then heroic. There was a lot to learn and adapt to over this fight, and we had to deal with things like me as a tank. I needed to deal with managing the bleeds and whatnot to manage them well. Now, as a Kyrian, I happen to have the File of Serenity. I can cleanse this thing at any time. But early on, our DPS was kind of low enough where I needed to use 2 cleanses. I needed to use the File to clean off some of the bleeds, and then I needed to use either a Divine Shield or Blessing of Protection to cleanse the other one. And that would be like a little bit, annoying. You can see Blue over there, his bare butt. He's just chilling. I'm jealous. I'm baffled. I'm partially baffled because it's like, oh man, if he could just do that and just pump, he could just go like straight DPS and then just not have to worry about anything. But we have a certain way of doing it. Blue, he takes the boss over towards the middle. We have things marked on the corners here, and then this is where I'm going to be pooping out the Rip Soul. The healer's going to probably put cooldowns on me. There we go. So my HP stays high. And I found this to be not exactly challenging. It's something that Rip Soul is something that I wanted to feel like I can handle on my own by keeping myself up somehow, and then healing the Rip Soul target whenever I could. But I found that to be like woefully ineffective. Like I felt like I needed the healers to really help me out with this one. But yeah, it took us a while to get this sort of organization going, and I probably should have said this earlier. We don't look at guides, or at least I don't look at guides. If the guild does and whatnot, they just lie and they don't tell me. It's kind of a thing that I do personally, where I want the team to kind of figure things out for themselves. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a tactic that we just kind of made up. Taking them this far, the way the positioning is, and then of course the timing and how I don't want or need Blue to move, so that way the melee can just stand there and pump and until they needed to go for the Barghast, those little spirit dog thingamajiggers, and then you can see I try to get like a little bit more damage in whenever I can before I gotta run my ass back out for Rip Soul again. So it I guess for me it was fun because I was constantly engaged with something. I was like, okay, that dog's dead, cool, next one's coming out. I have Blue come over, or slowly start coming over so we can cleave these things down, and then everyone else will do the job. So once we got to like this point, things can get pretty intense with the dog and him doing his crazy buff, and sometimes I would just tunnel or I would just sort of fall asleep here. I think there was one time where I got killed because I just didn't pay attention, like because they'll get to like 7 stacks. I'm like, oh, and so I'll boom, I'll drag them over, and all of a sudden the raid's taking massive damage. And I thought that's really cool. I think it's really cool to have that sort of mechanic where one person dictates all the raid damage that's going to go out. So it was kind of fun being able to manage, watching people and being, helping to deal with that by me popping a personal cooldown and taking a little bit more damage because the raid might be falling behind because of damage over time and things like that. But overall, and then towards the end of the fight, it was boring. It was pretty much like this you reach the climax here where we're lusting, we're going nuts, we're doing our best to manage the damage and all that stuff, and then once he goes down, it's like, the huntsman gets mad. He gets so raged out because his puppies are dead, and from that, it falls off really quick. It's like when they were designing this fight, they're like, oh, so what else we got, guys? Nothing? No? Okay, all right, let's just, fuck it, just let him die. and so down he went. So I moved my window, whatever. But this is what I'm talking about. Like they do a lot of gambling all throughout trash. If I had this, if I had this thing going the whole time, you'd be able to see like just constant, rolling for gold. Where the person who rolls the lowest, they have to pay out. The person who rolls the highest, they're the winner. They get whatever gold, and then anywhere between 5 and 15 people might roll. Like there we go. Arth gave Xy'mox over there freaking 10k. I don't play that game. I don't play because, well, I'll tell you why later. But definitely not my thing. I'm not a gambler kind of person, which kind of made me a little bit worried at first. I was a little bit worried that the interest of the raid was waning, because I'd say like midway through progression, that's when people really started to get into like the gambling thing. But it's just during trash. It wasn't like people weren't being so distracted that it was preventing trash from dying or anything like that. So it wasn't like a huge deal. I just found it really humorous that like all throughout trash, it's like, all right guys, let's go. Like these guys are addicts, man. It's nuts. Like whether it's this raid or the other raid, like that, like they're pretty intense. But it helps to break the monotony. It's trash, right? And so if there's something that's going to entertain the guild, even if it's not my thing, who am I to? I ain't no grandpa. You can't gamble during trash. No, I'm not gonna do anything like that. So, what's this guy's name? Hungry and what's his face? Fun fight from a tanking spot. It feels intense. The damage that goes out is pretty high. Much higher if you play it like a little bit recklessly. But our tactics on this thing were so bad. We were awful waffle with the tactics. And it wasn't until I was hanging with our second group that they had like this brilliant strategy of how to manage the positioning from one phase to the next. So you can kind of see like these markers that are going down. There's going to be 4 markers that go down, I think. So you have like the groups that are like in those, one of those 2 markers, circle and triangle over there. We start the fight there. When the consume happens, the big wow thing, we all run back to this position, to diamond and star, and then the positioning stays the same. We do the thing, consume happens again, we go back to circle and triangle, and like that's it. So on heroic, it worked wonders. Like it worked great. We were able to get all them little ball thingies like placed elsewhere, because during progression, like we were like in the middle. We were calling for hunters. You could see we have a crap ton of hunters. We had hunters and other such people popping immunities to break balls, as many as they could. I was doing it. Our other pally, Azazia or Columbo, as we call him, like he was breaking stuff too. Like it was a pretty messy encounter, and I guess I think I should just skip to it here. So it became just a lot cleaner, and that's kind of it, huh? There's not too much to this particular fight, especially from a tanking perspective. Once you have the routine down, if you have a good routine, the rest is very mechanical. It becomes kind of second nature. The one thing right here would be like whenever this thing goes out, I tend to like stay in. If I happen to be tanking the boss, I'll pop a small cooldown because I want to pop that ball thing that I poop out like right away. If I'm not tanking, excuse me, if I'm not tanking and Blue's tanking, then I'm like, all right, cool. I'll set on my ball, I'll hit that thing, and and assuming that Blue doesn't pop a cooldown and hit his, I'll hit his instead. So there's a bit of fun to that, in that we can help each other out a little bit. But otherwise, yeah, this fight became very straightforward once we got these tactics down. I don't know if I should say this fight's boring, because the damage that goes out, for tanks at least, is fairly high. Like I said, I was like popping small cooldowns here and there. Here we have to like do some smart things like, hey, run into the circle things and help each other out. I tend to not do that because I'm a diva. You can't you can't tell me what to do. but yeah, you can see here like we did the whole turnaround tactic, and like that was pretty much it. So I'd say like the if it wasn't for the damage, this would be a very boring fight. The tactics and figuring it out, how to do it correctly, that was a bit of a game. But once we had that, it became a lot more dull. So like here you go, I was tanking him, I popped a cooldown, I had my AD going, but yeah, not a big deal. So my tank happens to run. Let's see, what legendary does he have? He has the one where some Holy Avengers engraved sigil. That's what he mains with. It's the one where I randomly re-proc my Avenger Shield. It has a 35% proc rate. When I throw it, it might refresh and I can throw another. And I also rock First Avenger. That gives me the bubble. And it's not ideal from a throughput standpoint, but that's not the way I typically tank. I typically like the control. I like the self healing, and I like having bubbles a little bit more. Now, it could easily be argued that using I'm not remembering the names of talents. Double Judgment, I'll just call it that. Double Judgment is arguably better because I have high haste. I have 30% haste. I'm running it pretty high, and so I should have a lot of control over like the self-healing game, whether it's healing myself or I can even spot heal others. But I just love shields. That's kind of it. A big part of my philosophy for playing is play what you want, and then we'll figure out the rest. Unless it's like really that bad. Like if you're playing a survival hunter, you know that probably gets some that probably raises some eyebrows. But if you do well, then I'm not going to care. If you could do better, okay, that's something to consider. But unless you're doing like terribly, I'm not gonna mind it so much, whatever spec that you decide to roll. And so that's what gives me the excuse to spec my paladin however the hell way I want. Darkvein is definitely one of the more fun fights that I tanked. Even though there's not a whole lot going on for the tanks themselves, it's just, manage 2 stacks of the dots. Whenever the ads come out, reposition, hold on to the one that does the melee stuff, and like that's it. But the damage is extreme in terms of the raid. So this is where I think and I hope that I'm speccing for Judgment of Light. It doesn't look like it's going off though, so maybe I don't have it going this time. I'm such a monster. But at the time of progression, we were definitely struggling to squeeze out as much healing as we could because there was just like so much going out. The DPS wasn't high enough to break certain thresholds. People were struggling with cutting the lasers. It took us a while to realize, we don't stand on top of the balls, we use the lasers and then we cut the things. Gotcha. Okay. So that part took a while. Otherwise, once we got, as always, once you get the routine down, it becomes a lot more manageable. But then during progression, oh man, it was tough. I was like popping Blessing of Sacrifice on blue, like on the regular. At the time, I think we were switching on 3 stacks instead of 2. So during that time, we were like doing our best to try to time, okay, how long is this debuff? Okay, we can manage to have this many debuffs before the switch. Okay, great, that works out perfectly. And at the time, yeah, it was really sensitive that we needed to make sure that the tanks were holding on to only 2 of those debuffs at a time. As for the positioning, I'm not even quite sure if the positioning here is ideal. It just feels like this gives us the most room to, for people to run out and either catch things or to take care of the orbs whenever they happen. And then as you can see here, we're doing the placement of the ads, which they love to run over the tanks on their way over, and they scare the hell out of me. But then, as you can see, we try our best to drag the boss over. And because of the nature of this fight, this is one thing that I really like about the fight is that certain parts of it are kind of random, where sometimes like these ads will come out, and sometimes depending on the canister that the team opens up, maybe they won't come out. And let me disclose right now, perfectly honest, I don't even know how this fight works to this day. I don't know how the cans work. I know it's like, you know, when the bar fills up to a certain percentage, a thing happens, and then you gotta drain it, I guess, because if it gets to the second one, something else happens, and I don't know which one does what. So this one, I really gotta thank the raid for figuring all that stuff out, because I never have, and yeah, to this day, and I don't think I ever will. It's just like, okay, I see what's in front of me, okay, let's do it. And some of my healers, like one of our, like our resto druid, like she won't be frustrated, but she'll always sound frustrated. But I love her; she's great. It's just, yeah, I don't know this fight. I should probably stop talking, huh? Because I don't really know how this fight works. A quick comment while we're doing trash and these guys are doing gambling. I also, like I said, I play Kyrian, and so I noticed that it's impossible for me to get very high up on Warcraft logs. It's just not a thing. I'm destined to, like, you know, stay down there, bitch. And woe to the very few protection paladins that happen to be Night Fae or Necrolord. I don't know how they would manage anything. I feel like when it comes to things like Warcraft logs and that sort of thing, because of the nature of it, it's not like they can separate the brackets between the different covenants. I mean, maybe the person could, but then that's like, you know, that's a magnitude of work that would go into it. But in today's WoW, in today's world of top score and all that stuff, it does feel bad to make a certain choice that means you are ineligible of breaking a certain point. Either that or I'm bad. Maybe I'm just doing really awful, and then there's like a thing that I can do with Fan of Shields, Divine Toll, whatever, that would make me amazing. Oh my god, how did he do so much damage? Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a thing. And like I said, maybe I'm missing something. Ow, I died. Maybe I'm missing something, but I just don't, you know, even though that's a pain point, like, it's just something to point out. But that said, you know, I just love being Kyrian in these fights. I love having the utility that Fan the Shield gives me. And I feel like while oh god, what is it called? Ashen Hollow, the Venthyr ability. While that would give me a much greater advantage when it comes to just putting out damage, is that what that's not what I really care to do. I want dead bosses, and that doesn't necessarily mean I need to step up on the damage. If I can manage to make myself into the kind of tank that the healers and whatnot don't need to worry about, that's my job. That's my role play. You know what I mean? To me, it's that role play of being the reliable tank, if that's possible. Sometimes my guild lets me know that's impossible, but I do my best. So anyway, Sun King, I'll probably skip ahead in a little bit, but I found this fight to be definitely one of the more boring / enjoyable fights, because as a tank, it's chaos. There's like ads coming. There's ads coming from all sorts of directions. Here, I'll just skip ahead now. Yeah, this fight is chaotic because ads come from all sorts of different directions. They teleport and they stand still for a little bit. It feels frustrating. You know, you feel like there's that lack of control. And among my team, at least it looks like today, normally we have 1, maybe 2 Death Knights show up, and I'm going to call them out. How dare you be unreliable when we need you? Normally we have 2 Death Knights here, and both of them, I believe, run Venthyr. We have no Slappy Hands in this raid at all, and I feel like, especially on a fight like this, it would help a little bit. It wouldn't be critical, but it would be pretty helpful to have something like, I don't even know the name of the ability anymore. But yeah, if we didn't have the slap, not having the slap, I'm sorry. I feel like we lose a lot of control where we could like down the assassins faster or control the infusers a little bit better. It would have been greatly helpful. But as a tank, while it feels cool, like throwing out Fana shields and being able to interrupt a bunch of those guys, like I did with those occultists right over there, it's still a little frustrating. But as a paladin tank, it does feel pretty cool that there's so much more utility that I have access to, and that I can heal. I think my lay on hands, you can kind of see right there, it has 5 minutes left on its cooldown. So I used it right at the start of the fight. Maybe I could have used it sooner, but oh well. I just wanted to get that out of the way in case one of the other paladin over there wanted to use his lay on hands, and maybe he uses it at an opportune time. So this is the tactic that I tend to use here. We take Kael'thas over to the door, and then we start doing this whole dance of kiting the phoenixes, pulling them back, and it took us a little while to get used to this sort of routine. Sometimes we would fail to move the boss right after like a blazing surge or the ember blast or whatever it's called, and then people would be standing in poop for a little bit longer than we would like. This is one of those fights where things happen based on the performance of the raid, or what you would call like mechanics that happen based on the boss's health or the boss's life in this case, since this is a backwards ass fight. Sometimes it's going to get really frustrating because we would have to tell healers, hey, stop healing because we're going to hit 40-some%. We still have too many ads up, that sort of thing. And you want to have that sort of control going into the shade phase. So that caused a lot of wipes, and it's a regular source of frustration for me. I don't like those mechanics, but at the same time, when it works out well, it works out fantastic because, oh man, cool, everything is cleared out. Or, hey, we're able to out DPS like this whole mechanic thing, and we're able to, push the phase that much faster. That was great. So it's either great or it's absolutely terrible. And we've had, a good number of terrible pulls in fights such as this one because we were either doing too much or too little. I don't like I said, I don't like telling the team, hey, hold back. I know you guys worked hard at getting your gear and all that, but can you stop DPS? Can you not do things like for a little bit? But once we, as always, once we get this routine down, then it becomes a lot more manageable. It's just a matter of sometimes with my team, I got to remind people to wake up. Because people will start to tunnel, people will relax a little bit, and when everyone relaxes, then wipes happen. But no, I do agree. Like a lot of the tanking does feel easy, except for the planning stages. That's super important. So like depending on where I take Kael'thas, or depending on how we dance around with Sludgefist, the positioning, like it's a make or break. But once we have it, and we can execute, then it's much easier. Then it's just a matter of, of course, staying alive. But positioning, I've noticed, has become more of a big deal than surviving. Because it factors in so much to, oh no, the healers are taking care of too many of the other things when they could be taking care of us, and it'd be trivial otherwise. So, once we have everything cool, like right now, like the ads we're under control. There's a Vank up. Yeah, there's a Vanquisher up, but that's nothing. That ain't nothing to worry about. If Assassins were up, that's a different story because of the nature of how they do their damage to a bunch of people in a small range. But for a Vank, the damage is just going to the tanks, and I at least can bubble cleanse it off. I have all sorts of tricks to take care of it, and everyone else can just handle the Ember Blast and the other fire attacks just fine. Things get a little bit tight here, but we tend to down him pretty quick at this point. He's well into an execute phase, so it doesn't take too long to bring this guy down. You can see that our number 4 spot is a warrior. Woo! So he does okay. I know that warriors haven't been doing great during this tier, but I think that our dude Metal, he's just a sadist or masochist or whatever you want to call it. I always get that mixed up. I think if I haven't looked at wipe counts but I have a feeling that Artificer is the second hardest boss in the raid for my team. When we started heroic on this guy, like, this is gonna be a pretty clean looking kill, I think. But when we started, we were the worst. And like we looked at those traps and we thought they were something that you were supposed to stand in, or something like that, because everyone was getting trapped. I think I got trapped like once or twice early on too, and it was just bad. Blue, he would have that hand of destruction thing. He would walk and he would turn around and walk into a trap. It was pathetic. It was really, really sad. And so people were like, what's going, like a couple people who never got hit by any of the mechanics, like, they would like privately say, dude, what is going on? Why is everyone dying to this stuff? So there we go. See how close Blue is to that portal? I think there was one time where he just like absentmindedly was running, and then a portal spawned. Someone was there to spawn a portal. He ran right into the portal. He ends up on the other side over there where the group is, and then bam, just like smokes a whole bunch of people. And this is probably like, I think like 2 weeks ago. It wasn't that long ago when that happened. So it's pretty easy to screw up this fight, but at the same time, it's so easy to not. It's one of those situations. Know what I mean? Yeah. Well, yeah, it's rough. And anyway, real quick, you can see by the tactics, like we tank him on the side here. I don't know if everyone does it, whatever. But we put him on one side so that way everyone can run a couple of those seeds over to the thing, and ta-da! That does like pretty much all the management, and that's the fight. Don't beam the things, dodge the things, listen for the callouts. I should probably say this now before, sooner rather than later. Our warrior dude, Metal or Medel, as I call him, he was our shot caller. He was like our max of PAL, except that he's crazy because he plays as a warrior. So it's like, oh yeah, that's real smart. But anyway. Like I said, you can play what you want, all right? Yeah, he was a shot caller, and I'm always thankful for that. Even though I call myself the raid lead, it's more me managing things so that they don't get out of hand. But when it comes to like the day-to-day, like I said, Medel does like all the hey, this and this is coming, everyone move, blah blah. He manages most, if not all, that stuff. When it comes to like the actual tactics and things like that, then it's a much more collaborative thing where a lot of us give our input and try to introduce ideas, and then we try them out and we die to them, and and then come back to it. So this this didn't take a while. Like we had the routine. It was just execution was terrible at the start. The one thing though, like the way that we wanted to set up these portals for the final phase, we were kind of like, okay, well, should we do it like this or should we do it like this? And I was like, dude, just just try to put the thing closer to the middle so that way we get dragged into it. And we were having like some back and forth conversations. We as in like all of us, as to like what worked best. Should it be like a little bit outside or should it be further in? I'm like, no, it should be further in, because otherwise it's going to be, there's a cooldown between how fast you can jump into a new portal, and other such things. But yeah, like this is supposed to be a simpler fight. It's just that when a screw up happens, especially with portal placement or something like that, like you're done. And you can see like there are a couple of deaths. That kind of goes to show just how easy it is to screw up on the fight. And thankfully they didn't get everyone else killed. Council is a fun fight, but it's also so boring for me specifically, because as a pally tank, I am the most equipped to handle Frida. So you can see over there, X over there is Nicholas, and we do Nicholas and then Stavros, whatever, and then Frida is last. That's our tactic. And so I just sit my ass there and do nothing, almost nothing but interrupt and do worthless damage. So, I mean, I know I could switch, but one thing that I don't want to do is risk compromising my positioning. I want to make sure that when Stavros does his lunge thing, that it always stays in the same lane. So that's like the no man zone. It's like, don't mess with me in that zone. So like the idea that we have, and this comes with, this came with having higher DPS after a while. Like, we don't even tank swap anymore. There's no tank swap that happens because I just make blue handle it until either the current boss phases and we do the dance thing, or it dies and then we move on to the next thing, and like that's pretty much it. So I stay on Frida, and so what do? I entertain myself by dancing like a dumbass, and and then getting back to doing my usual thing. And otherwise, it took us a while to figure this out though. Like we weren't sure about the order in which to take care of these bosses, because as you know, once you kill one, then the other ones get, you know, the next one gets enhanced abilities and that sort of thing. We found that this combo was really easy to manage. I'm not, I don't think I'll even show this entire fight. So what we would do, like once Nicholas is dead, that whole dance thing, we all just run to the stage. You know, we run up to the front to pretty much avoid all those mechanics while we kill Stavros. And once that's done, once Frida's down, or once Stavros is down, we work on Frida. And once she gets to her 50%, we do the dance. We charge in with the, actually we lust right when Stavros goes down, and then we work specifically on Frida. See, as you can see right here, the positioning never changes. Nothing changes. Not until in just like a little bit. We'll see. The waltz is in 10 seconds. Yeah, so we're gonna move through the stage, do that sort of thing. But otherwise, like, yeah, like when it comes to like the dance and all that stuff, we don't bother trying to, you know, get close to each other. The damage difference between being together and not together, it's not worth the effort of risking people running over each other. Like, we learned that. Like, it was just much easier to manage when people were just running away from each other. So yeah, you can see like no switching is happening. I'm just on Frida. Really dull fight for me. We did try doing other tactics, and on normal we did clear it with you know, by doing this in a different order. So we had to fight off waiters, like a bunch of waiters would come, and then we would have a big gargoyle dude come, and we gotta burn him down. Yeah, so it felt like a very different fight towards the end. But with this method, this felt like cake. Like once we tried this out, and I think at the time, some people did look at guys are like, yeah, dude, some guys are saying this and this, and we didn't like it, and so we tried this. Because I think at the time, people didn't really mention this as a tactic, and we're like, dude, this is a cake. Okay, you know, so we'll go and do that. Ah, Sludgefist. Oh yeah. This is the first real wall of the raid. You know, like the kind of pseudo incompetence of Artificer, and you know, we did struggle a little bit on Council. Not Council. Kael'thas. This was the real challenge, the real wall. You know, we don't have enough DPS. The real DPS check. We tried a variety of tactics, and it wasn't until you know, it was with the help of the second group and for them to try some other tactics. Like, we were able to get this guy down on heroic with an original tactic that I had, which was to tank the boss kind of where the group is right now. In this case, we opted for this tactic where we sort of control where the poops go. That way you can see the ranged, they will always go in that one direction, and then the tanks, we would just try to control where it is the boss is, so that way it's easier for them. That way, once we get to like the third and the fourth pillar, there'll be a lot more room. There is a smaller likelihood that the crumbling stuff, you know, the poop, isn't over here. But it took us a while to get some of this down. Like we had, like before, after that second stomp, Blue and I would go back to the boss so we could keep him like where he is, just so we can get like a tiny bit more damage in. It turns out that wasn't really worth it. We opted to like not bother with that and just run behind the pillar like right away. So you can see right here, we're gonna try and reposition the boss as best as we can. Try not to cut that pillar, but just try to move this guy back a little bit more. I think I moved him a little bit too far back in this case. This is also where Scrumble / Blue, this is where like I really started to feel him struggle, because there's just like so much going on, and Blue has been notorious for not popping his normal defensive cooldowns or I'm sorry, not defensive cooldowns, active mitigation. I'm talking about like Iron Fur and things like that. And so it's been a challenge to help make sure that he manages this somehow with, you know, with reminders or pep talks or weak auras and other such things to help him out with. You can see here that I back up kind of far behind the pillar. Before I would hug the damn thing and I'd be like on it, like, yeah, let's do it, so I could get like a little bit more damage in while he's in this stun phase. But there was like at least 2 or 3 times where the boss would hit the pillar, but he would still hit me behind it as if I was in front of the boss. So I would die. I'm like, oh snap! And so that tactic changed. Now I just go behind the pillar because it's like, okay, I'm not losing much. This ain't the end of the world. This is definitely a period where something like Ashen Hollow would have made like a really big difference. Is he gonna get stunned? Yep, he got stunned there. Oh, Blue. So those are the kind of things that made it a little bit rough, because we had the idea and the tactics, like we needed to smooth out the tactics, even though the randomness of the poop could easily disrupt it could easily disrupt the whole routine. Like if we had bad poops, then we would just like damn near wipe, because it just wouldn't work out. As you can see here though, like we're just like smashing them on the DPS right now. Before, like we would be at probably 40% by the time we would hit this, and then we would barely be able to hit the 30% mark when by the time this phase ended. I think we're actually gonna wipe on this one, actually, because I see where he's standing right now. Yeah, I think we're gonna wipe on this. Look at where the pillar is. Look where he is right now. We're gonna wipe. Bad. So, like I said, tactics. Tactics is the main thing, because otherwise this was a smooth pull, and I was like, F it, let's just try to do it anyway. So we're just trying. Spoiler alert: we didn't kill it with this one. It was the next one that we killed it on. But otherwise, this fight was fun. This fight was a lot of fun to learn. It was a challenge to beat. I did notice like my own vulnerabilities as a tank. I was like, oh man, I'm feeling like like right at the pull, I would need to pop a minor defensive cooldown, because for whatever reason I was just getting trucked just in the first couple hits. So I needed to like try to time my minor cooldowns and other such things. Yeah, we were trying. We were really trying. But it just didn't work out. Tisk. I should have pulled out another 200k damage there. Ashen Hollow, right? That would have made the gosh darn difference. So I think here we're gonna go for that third pillar again. Yeah, we're about to go for that third pillar. So yeah, the routine, like once we were trying all sorts of different ways to reposition the boss in such a way. It was the poop. The poop was a big problem for people. Even though I don't think I know it's a big problem when it comes to trying to avoid certain mechanics and to avoid the chains accidentally breaking and things like that. So now you can see I'm like, okay, now I'm moving it way farther back. Look at that, tanking like a smart person. And you can see here, like, this is the second pull. Like his HP is low. We don't even get to that fourth pillar at all. So if anything, I could look back and say, hey, Deeps, you guys should have done better. That way, even if I did break that that second pillar, we would have been fine. Right. Yeah, so come on, Deeps. Do your jobs. No, the team did really well on the second pull. I think once they realized where they were at on the DPS and stuff, they're like, okay, we can do this. We can push. So all right, so Stone Legion, we killed it for the first time after like all the major nerfs and fixes and things like that. The only thing that made this boss feel challenging is that it was like later in the raid. You know, by the time we would get to this boss, and we raid pretty late. We start basically at 10 at night. We end at 1 in the morning. By the time we get to like these bosses, we're tired. You know, we raid 3 hours a day, twice a week. And so by the time we get to this particular boss, like people are like pretty worn out. And so early on, when we got to this guy and girl, whatever, it was a struggle. Like we were like screwing up on the on the blades. What is it called again? Wicked Blade. We weren't running it out fast enough, or people were getting clipped, and a bunch of people would take the dot. People weren't cleansing it fast enough. There's just a lot. There's a lot that's going on during this fight. From a tanking standpoint, though, it was really dull. It's one of those, hey, positioning is very important. Make sure you get it right. And Blue and I, we managed to, you know, get that stuff down pretty easily. And so for us, it's just making sure that we're maintaining the positioning in such a way that, okay, we can get lots of cleaves down. It's easy for people to run the things out. People are cleansing their debuffs. I didn't need to cleanse my debuffs because I'm like freaking dope. But my critique on the fight, though, is the dead phase. When we're about to get called to 50%, we get that ad to come out. You know, so we're all focusing on the ad. You know, like whoever happens to have aggro on the boss, like whatever, we're just focusing on killing the ad anyway. And then it's a dead phase. We just kind of like chill until we get all those anima things in. And in this case, you know, unlike an HP threshold, or, you know, unlike having to stop DPS or whatever, it's just a matter of making sure that we time feeding Renethal his anima stuff, that we don't do it during like a Wicked Blade, because that could cause like some big ass problems in terms of, oh, you know, everyone's getting pushed back at the same time, this and this is happening, so we want to try and avoid that whenever possible, which is totally cool. It's just it's just getting that timing down, and that's kind of it. But yeah, the like this phase, it feels frustrating. Like, hey, it's a moment where healers can get like a little bit of mana back, but otherwise, no, not really. This is another Kyrian, and this is another thing that makes me feel advantageous as a Kyrian, because I could just cleanse these things and not have to worry about eating a stun or anything like that, even though that's not a big deal. I could just go in and get myself cleansed just as normal, and I can save my File of Serenity for like an actual heal if I wanted to, but screw that. This is my class fantasy. I want to try and enjoy it as much as I could. It took us a little while to get the positioning down, though, because there's so much stuff to like lay down and try to avoid, and then okay, we can relax a little bit. Medell wanted us to throw down like those poops right there. That was a incorrectly placed one. We wanted to throw them down like in a certain order, so that way it was easy to understand where your next placement was going to be. You can see those markers towards the back. That's kind of the general vicinity of where we want them to go. We've had like some tactical debates over like how to handle Grishal, especially during that phase, during that part where those spikes are coming up from the ground, whatever that's called, reverberating some or other, and how we want to try and move as a group so we can try to get more DPS going out. It just felt a little bit weird and inconsistent. I'm like, you know, that part of the fight is so short. I don't think that's a big deal. This isn't a DPS race. This wasn't a race to get them down quickly. It was more about survival, making sure that your debuffs are being managed, that you're cleansing them, making sure that you run out those debuffs so that way they're in a good spot to not get in people's way, and for people to stand on top of when you needed to stand on top of them. So there we go. So there, now you see like things are starting to line up a little bit better. But yeah, I saw this definitely as a survival fight more than a DPS check. If anything, the DPS check on this fight is whenever those gargoyles get to 20%. And then it does that stacking thing that prevents you from getting heals. That's where you should be. That's where I would want people to like tunnel for a hot second, make sure that thing goes down. And otherwise, the bosses and stuff, like they were dying on schedule. So it was just a matter of survive, and we got 3 people down. At post nerf, this was a very forgiving fight. I was really surprised that our second group, when they got to this boss, they got him down in like 2 pulls, I think, like very few pulls, and it took us like well over a dozen. And so some people, I know I felt a little bit salty. I'm like, damn, they got it real quick. What's going on? But I know like a lot of it was experience and tactics. That's what a lot of our early wipes were. It was just like, oh, we screwed up on a very essential thing. Everyone's dead. That sucks. Or not enough people are soaking, that sort of thing. Or people just kind of forgot what mechanic does what. So like that 2-stage, the crystallize, and then the thing that happens after that confused people for a little bit, because it happens. And that's it. So once we got it down, cool. Apparently this is stacking bleed before well, the stacking bleed, I mean, yeah, it's a bleed debuff, and that's something that you do want to have Iron Fur up for. But in the case of blue, like he just needs to, stand in the crystallize, and that's it. Stand and crystallize, cleanse it. For me, it was like you could see my Blessing of Protection, that's on cooldown. My File of Serenity, that's on cooldown. So I used it already. I have Bubble available too. I have 1 stack of the bleed so far. Yeah, so by the time we got to this point, I think I used the bubble, so it wasn't a big deal. Yeah, it's just a keep calm and do the mechanics sort of fight. Because yeah, that second group, they were able to get it down in 2 pulls, and they had dead people like hella early. So this is a really forgiving fight. Like you can kind of take your time to get this guy down. Denathrius was fun. I really enjoyed this fight. Everything's happening. Everything's happening. There's so much that everyone's got to do. The damage is nuts. I died. Yeah, it's all sorts of things. So how many of us are there? 20. Yeah, so 20 people here. You can see the raid is staggered in a certain way because we needed to have groups go in for the beam. I'm so bad at naming abilities. Sorry, guys. Yeah, we have people stacked in a certain way. I took every single one until I ran out, and then blue would grab the rest. But eventually DPS just started to get high enough to where we didn't have to worry about certain things. But yeah, this fight was just intense from start to finish. I really hate the teleport though. I really hate the boss's teleport. It makes positioning such a pain, and that's the name of the game for the tanking in this fight, is positioning. Get the positioning right, and that makes everybody's lives easier. It makes the cleave damage go up exponentially by magnitudes, however you want to spin it. But having it right, it gives the rest of the team a solid foundation to work on. Phase 1's cake from a tanking standpoint. There's very little going on. It's like, oh, help soak a thing whenever the thing goes out. And we have a good number of people that have immunities. By the way, this is the second day of raiding. You can see that we have a different roster. We have fewer hunters. We have 2 death knights now, 1 mage. So obviously we have like some extreme damage going out to pretty much trivialize these little painful memory guys that are going out. We did struggle a little bit with the tactics, though. Like you can see here, we have people stack, and then whenever Fatal Finesse goes out, or whatever it's called, the lines, we have people, run out or run in and pop an immunity like right away, just to make it easier for people to understand. And otherwise, everyone stacks on top of the tank. The tank will move as little as possible. That has been the practice that people are accustomed to. For a quick minute, we tried doing a different tactic where we had like 2 groups, and the tank would aim the laser at the group, and that for whatever reason didn't work out. Like I would aim it and he would fire, and hardly anyone would get hit, and things would be bad. So this was a lot easier to manage in practice. So we got in, we did the roars. That wasn't, this is like routine. The game starts at phase 3, to be honest. But things got a lot more interesting during phase 2. Taunt the sword. That was we learned that really quickly. We just say taunt the sword every time, because you never know. But yeah, doing this particular part of the fight was a lot of fun. Denathrius warps in. I try to cut 3 dudes with his Racking Pain. So I kind of do it at an angle, because Racking Pain fans out a little bit. So I try to make it so that he hits that 3rd guy all the way on the other side. But yeah, the DPS, they just smoke through these ads. And so you see those little boops. We call it the boop. So whenever those go out, I try to tell Blue, come to the mirror. Come to the mirror. He tends to not be on the bridge, because I think because of camera issues, which are, legit. Like camera issues can be such a pain in the ass during this fight. He will end up getting knocked off because he might be too close to an edge, or he just might not be in a good spot. And at least for me, I had a much easier time with trying to keep the boss close to the mirror, having my back to the mirror in case I do get booped. There I got hit by a thing. That's me being bad. I try to keep my back either to the mirror or just like really close. It's like you could see here, I'm trying to aim the Racking Pain out and then go back to the mirror. It can get a little frustrating, because sometimes the boss will face a certain way and he'll pull everyone in, but it's just not an ideal position for us to like run back out and take care of the mirror stuff. So you can see here, like I struggle a little bit with trying to get the Racking Pain on at least 2 of the guys here. But then after that, as soon as I'm able to, I try to move back in. I think I'm trying to find the sword. That was one frustrating thing, trying to taunt that damn sword, because it's like right now he's doing Massacre. Okay, so I'm not able to taunt the darn thing at all. I have to wait until I can audibly hear the sword come back, or otherwise see it. But I just wait for the audio cue before getting it back. But in this case, we're taking them over to this other side of the platform here. I hear that there are other tactics on how to manage these like a little bit better, like in terms of like, okay, the movement and how to manage the next set of ads when they come out. But this seems okay. Like it doesn't seem like there's a lot of downtime between the ads coming out and throwing down the next Racking Pain. So I managed to get 2 of them. I'm pretty sure I didn't get the 3rd one. We had 2 early deaths, which is really unfortunate, and definitely not the kind of thing that we want to have in this particular fight. Not with how grueling phase 3 can be, although not after the nerfs that happened this week. The biggest vulnerability that I noticed as a tank was going through that damn mirror. Going through the mirror meant everyone's moving. But while everyone's moving, the boss is still more than free to melee the tank as much as they want. So I happen to switch my legendaries here. I happen to use, I don't remember the name, sorry guys, but I happen to use the legendary that gave me the shorter cooldown on Ardent Defender. So I can manage to have my Ardent Defender cooldown at about 35 seconds or something like that. Ideally, 35 seconds, 35 to 50 seconds is basically what the cooldown gets brought down to. And then Ardent Defender can last up to 12 seconds. So that's up from 6 if I'm like throwing a bunch of Shield of the Righteousnesses. So now it's game time with phase 3, and this is where, you know, nothing but positioning matters. It matters so much because you screw up, everyone dies. And so we're trying, you know, so we tried all sorts of different tactics to try to improve on whittling down those circles from the Fatal Finesse thing. And that was, it was hard. It was really difficult to get down. So we're trying to manage this with 2 DPS down, and that's some of our top DPS too. This was not as clean as I would have liked it to be, but we wanted to save like the reses for like tanks or whatnot. And so this is where blue really came through, despite some of the misgivings with, you know, keeping up Iron Fur and things like that. It's just, here's some trivia. His Iron Fur uptime here was, I think, 20 to 30%. It wasn't so great, but he came through. So I ain't mad about that at all. But yeah, it's just an intense fight. The damage is, you can see like I'm struggling. You know, trying to pop whatever cooldowns that I can, and trying to save it for like the last 10%. That was like the big one. And I know that towards the end of the fight, like things got really bad. I'm like, okay, let me pop a major cooldown and just eat some of the damage, because there's no hope of me avoiding it. But this was fun. This was a really good fight in terms of I gotta be constantly moving. Everyone's constantly moving, trying to get the right positioning down. Like that one was really bad. We probably could have done a lot better, like forcing the teleport. That's where the teleport would have been handy. But it would have been really sketch with the tank debuff, you know, whatever stacks there are. So now we have like that second thing going off. The knockback pretty much takes us out of it, and now it's just kind of that race. We're at what, like 10%. So that Fatal Finesse happened to be decent at least. And I think, one more knockback, and here's where I was like doing really bad, where I think I end up using a major cooldown. I probably should have just bubbled my way through instead. That way I could have saved my major cooldown for like something else instead. It's like, so here's where I think I pop like a major thing, because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get clipped by a bunch of stuff. So like there and there and there and there. Yeah, that one was really bad, and here I'm about to go down. So at like a little bit around 3%. He's gonna do his explodey thing. Blue does his best to reposition, and it was pretty good. But my health was just a bit too low. I should have popped something. I thought I was gonna survive it, but nope, didn't survive it. But we pretty much had him. I don't even accept the res in time before he dies. But we did it. So it's hard to complain. For a first tier, or for a first season raid, this was nuts. This was good. I really liked this raid overall. From the production to the fight mechanics to the effort that was put in, I feel like Sanctum of Domination has its work cut out for it. And I really hope that, you know, however long it takes for it to come out, that Blizzard can deliver on some good encounters. And I think the expectation is that, maybe it's not expectation, but I think I just have really high confidence. I've always had pretty high confidence in the raid content. Blizzard purposefully creates fights that, you know, some of them are like, okay, here's kind of a wall, or here is a you know, here's something that's a bit more of a struggle. Here's something that you might want to push, or here's something that'll tell you that you might need to go back and get some more gear. And I don't mind that one bit. I think Blizzard's formula in terms of raid content has been pretty solid. There's always there's small things, small nitpicky things, like with Stone Legion generals and that kind of dead immunity phase. That can be a little bit problematic, but overall, I'm pretty surprised that I talked so much throughout all these encounters. And so I'm grateful if you guys made it all the way to the end of this and that you put up with my rantiness and kind of randomness. But thank you. And thanks to Blizzard for having a pretty decent first season raid. I liked it. I didn't like this part though. This whole thing with if you have a Warlock and Endless Corruption, you're combat locked. So our kill was kind of stunted by this bug over here. Took us a while to finally get back, and then finally get her. Yeah, it took a while, and then we were able to get together for some screenshots. Yay! Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Like this thing if it matters. I know that it comes from a different perspective that may not be yours, but I hope you appreciate anything that I had to say about this. So yeah, I'll see you guys for the next thing that I do. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, stay breezy.